AudioVisual OpenMic number 9 is ready to roll. You already up there on stage? Cool thing. Okay, let's start that again. Hold on. Take 2.
See my shoe. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. That's my son, River. In the winter, I don't shiver. All right. All right. Okay, thumbs up. I guess that's ready to go, or he's hitchhiking. Okay. I am Derek Shapiro. I have a radio and cable show. I make movies and put it on YouTube. Last week, I took my car into Jiffy Lube. I am here at the Belmont Media Center. I live in an apartment. I am a renter. In 2 of my movies, I acted with the late Mayor Buddy. Once I lived in Atlanta. My tires got all muddy. I am from Little Rhodey. When I was a kid, I met Stephanie from Full House, whose name is Jody. On Dancing with the Stars, they dance and wiggle. Every time I see an Adam Sandler film, I giggle. Part-time, I also work for Walmart. Then I'm hungry for a Pop-Tart. Every Friday morning, I do a radio show from Salem State in Salem, Mass. Antonio Brown, he will never catch another pass. I have a longtime friend, co-star named Serenity Rose. Last winter, my pipes froze. Out now, my latest movie is called Bad of the Chickabone Part 2. I like the color blue. When I have dinner, I always need to use a knife. My exes told me to get a life. Every day, I like to drink lots of water. A lot of people say I need to put my life in order. On October 1st, my next movie comes out, Zombie. I never shop at Abercrombie. My middle name is Scott. In the summer, it does get hot. This is the end of summer. Did you see The Sound of Music with Christopher Plummer? Next week is fall. Dikembe Mutombo is tall. Next week, oh, I just said that. This was short and sweet. I'm going to get off the stage and give you a treat. Thank you. And this time, I'm going to put out my own cable show, give you guys props. I'm the Uber guy, too, now. Starting this week, I'm Ubering in Burlington and Winchester. So I'm about my November show, my cable show. I was in a bad mood till I heard you. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Some other people are now in a good mood, and then they would hear me in a bad mood. I love to make you guys laugh. Thank you. I love it here. I'm glad you laughed. See you next time. Yeah, take it easy. Yeah, I'm not feeling under the weather. I got to do some promotion in the area. Then go back and relax. Oh my God. I love coming here.
You'll see yourself up there on the monitor. Stand by.
Hi. Am I on? Okay. Happy Saturday, everyone. To whom am I addressing these words of
The world of Facebook Live
the world of Facebook Live
and Verizon in Belmont.
Amen. Well, I'm a visitor from the Big Apple, rotten to its core, a.k.a. the island of Manhattan. We were looking for some sweet deals next door, but we happened here. So as a son of a great lover of poetry, I thought I'd recite a poem or two. I wish my brother Jay, I wish I had, I have on me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to recite my brother Jay's poems. This is Jay from LA, my identical twin with whom I shared a womb. And with any luck, I'm going to warm up with a little William Blake and then morph into or land on Jay Stern's much more recent poetry. So I'm going to get Jay's poetry up and running here, if that's all right. Shoot, I have trouble with my AOLs. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I may call Jay, see if he can recite it to me. I'm going to call Jay now. I'm going to try to reach him. And then we may just channel Jay directly here because he's on voicemail now. But in the meantime, William Blake, one of...
Explain their stuff first or just kind of play?
Let me get you a sound first.
Okay. So go. We're
Let me get you a sound first, and then
okay.
we'll go.
Let's do it this way.
Do you have a volume control on that?
I do, yeah. I'm about 6 out of 10.
Battery's good in it?
Yeah.
got you in there. Good. Just introduce yourself when you see yourself on the screen.
Okay. Straight ahead. All right. How's it going? My name is Dylan Burke. I'm a singer-songwriter. I live in South Boston, live in town. I've been doing open mics for about a year now, year and change. I've been playing guitar for about 2 years. And I've just been writing some songs, and I'm going to be playing some original music for you. So we'll start off. This first song is called Smoke Jumping.
Jump on out that door, got me smoke jumping. What am I supposed to do? Well, I miss the color of your smile. Used to rise just like the sun. I've seen it. Oh, keep going? Okay. Yes, sorry. I couldn't get this one up. Is that a little low? Is it possible to start over or no? Yeah. Okay, cool. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good little test run. Okay, just start from the top. All right, my name is Dylan Burke. I'm a singer-songwriter, live in South Boston, and I'm going to be playing you a couple songs today. So this first one is called Smoke Jumping. Nice fire to be exact. Sparks were flying everywhere, and I was way too cool to stare. Well, I found you, and you found me. Well, the sparks going now in your eye, and the flames they burn outside. Well, the fire used to be in, now it's burning everything. Paradise is gone, how about you? You got me smoke jumping for you. Well, I hope I packed my parachute. 'Cause you don't love me no more, I still jump on out that door. You got me smoke jumping for you. What am I supposed to do? Well, I miss the color of your smile. used to rise just like the sun. I haven't seen it in a while, 'cause it's used, my use no more. Who's to blame? I can't be sure. Well, I just wish I could give you back your heart. Got me smoke jumping you. I hope I packed my parachute. 'Cause if I can't get you back, then I gladly turn to ash. Got me smoke jumping you. What am I supposed to do? There are days when the wind seems to blow, sweeps right through our hearts, oh, and make those embers glow. But I cannot take the heat. I used to think we were meant to be. Maybe it's time we put this fire out. Well, you got me smoke jumping. I didn't pack my parachute. Now I'm jumping out this plane, and all you wanted was my name. Got me smoke jumping for you. And that was smoke jumping. This next song I'm gonna play is called Timber. Will someone please help me find some timber? 'Cause I think my fire's burning low, and I won't make it through December, when the ground will be covered in snow. 'Cause my days, they're only getting longer, and my age, yeah, is starting to show. And I won't make it through the winter if my fire's burning low. Well, I used to be about it, I was leading from the front, and now I walk about it like I don't know where I'm from. Used to talk about it, taking snaps and forth and long. Now I talk about it like my dreams are come and gone. And I'm sitting at my desk losing hope, staring at a screen that's keeping me from going broke. And I used to write about it, that was kinda like my dope. Then I traded in that ground for like 7 feet of rope. Went for money and I made it, but spent it, never saved it. And it caught me like a Nike, where sauce we call it gravy. Thought she loved me and would save me, she was the perfect lady, but she was made of plastic, and debt was all she gave me. So for soap and now I borrow, I'm underneath the carload, but I'll never help you live, and I'm betting on tomorrow. So don't take this in sorrow, I'll conquer Kilimanjaro. I'm going for the goal, that's a shout to El Dorado. When I'm lax with the raps, when my words are never hollow. I've been to Mile High, that's a shout to Colorado. My life, I hit the lotto, and you would say the motto. I'm finding new roads, that's a shout to Silverado. So will someone please help me find some timber? 'Cause I think my fire's burning low, and I won't make it through December. No ground will be covered in snow. My days, they're only getting longer, and my age, yeah, is starting to show. And I won't make it through the winter if my fire's burning low. If my fire's burning low.
right, now it's Timber. We got one more for you. This song is called Gin Rummy. When I was a little kid, I used to play cards with my grandma. We would play this game, and she would beat me every single time just by playing strategy. So I wrote a song about it. This one's called Gin Rummy. My grandma used to play gin rummy with me. Man, I would always lose. Well, she played ones and twos, and I was looking for kings. But don't tell me what to do. I thought of jumping off a bridge today. Man, what would that prove? There ain't no kings and queens at the bottom of the bay. Just a bunch of IOUs. Hey, Grandma, I miss those days. I guess I did learn from you. Well, I've been looking for those kings and queens instead of playing ones and twos. The other day I heard a song, and it reminded me of you. It brought me back to 24 McGee, playing gin rummy with you. The other day I tried to play the game, but I forgot all of the rules. So I built a house made out of 52 and fell right through the roof. And Grandma, I miss those days. I guess I didn't learn from you. For those kings and queens instead of playing ones and twos. The other day I heard a song, and it reminded me of you. Brought me back to 24 McGee, playing gin rummy with you. Grandma, I miss those days. I guess I didn't learn from you. Well, I've been looking for those kings and queens instead of playing ones and twos. The other day I wrote a song, and it reminded me of you. It brought me back to 24 McGee, playing gin rummy with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, we had a malfunctioning mic, so not a malfunctioning mic ring, but a malfunctioning microphone. So just keep playing, please. Sounds great. Okay, we're ready for you.
So this piece is called Impression Sunrise. It's a
Dude, let me give you a mic.
So this piece is called Impression Sunrise. It's a composition that I had written last year, and it's based on the painting by Monet that started the Impressionistic movement.
Okay, you ready? Okay, here we go again.
Hi. This piece is called Impression Sunrise. Again, this is take 2. And
Jesus Christ, hold on. Sorry about that.
it's okay. So this is called Impression Sunrise. Again, this is take 2. And this was a composition that I had written last summer. It's based on the painting by Monet. And I would classify the genre of this piece as being ambient classical music. Eventually, I would like to rearrange it from piano to orchestra. So.
Do you want me to do anything with it? Up, down?
You want to give me a little vocal?
Check, check. Test, test. Vocal, vocal. Starting to hear it in the monitors. Yeah, starting to hear it maybe a little more if you can. Don't want to cause trouble here. That would be great. We saw waterfalls and mountains, danced in paradise. I can hear that. Harmonica is a pain in the neck, so let me try that out and you'll see what you think.
Sure, go ahead.
How's that?
Sounds great, man.
It's good. Great. So what I'm going to do, if it's okay for you guys, is I'm going to start right in, no introduction, just play, and then I'll speak a little bit between songs. And the second song, a big part of it is based on looking at the audience, which is why I'm going to be trying to figure out where the camera is.
You'll see the tally lights on top of the camera. They're in red.
So the red lights will be my indicator.
Yep.
Okay, great. That'll be a big help. So, okay, so I'm ready when you guys are. Oh, one last thing.
What's that?
The first song, I'm going to fade out by backing away from the microphone. So you're going to wonder, what is he doing? So it's going to be a manual fade.
No issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ready when you are. You can see yourself on the monitor, by the way.
I could see fingers, and I was like, well, I wonder why they're all raising their fingers. We saw waterfalls and mountains, danced in paradise. Chasing, laughing in the rain, kissing in the streetlights. You wrapped around me, sweet roses on the bed. Your heartbeat on my chest, the future in my head. But then I wake, you drift away in my river of dreams. You drift away in my river of dreams. I can soar above the sky, the world below I see. I can soar and dive, my wings wide, with endless speed. I can rule the world, kiss the girls. I've got everything I need. But then I awake, it drifts away in my river of dreams. It drifts away in my river of dreams. I will arise above my river of dreams. I will arise above my river of dreams. My river of dreams. My river of dreams. So, welcome. My name is Will Baird. I'm from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I just moved here from Connecticut. I'm a singer-songwriter. And that was My River of Dreams, which is from my first CD. You can get it on cdbaby.com. Or you can download it from my website, Will Baird, just like the name below me.com. I think for an artist, especially a performing artist, there are certain moments that make you feel alive in a way that nothing else can. And you cannot imagine what it is like to perform in front of 50 or 100 people, and it's dark, and you can see people's eyes, and you're making a connection. And personally, I prefer to play in front of smaller crowds because of that. And you get done, and there's this enormous applause, and as you're leaving, people are patting you on the back, and they're saying good job, and they're shaking your hand, and you're like an eighth of an inch off the ground. You know, it looks like you're walking, but you're really not, because for you, you're flying, and you're flying because after what you just did and what you just experienced, there is no gravity. There is no gravity. I stand before you, spotlight song. I rise to meet you with every song. There's a connection with every eye when I sing for you. I fly up to freedom. No gravity. You're the only reason for this singer's soul is free from gravity. Gravity. Some days gravity, it holds us down, and we forget the good we've found. The soul runs cold and the heart turns blue. But when I sing for you, I fly up to freedom. No gravity. You're the only reason that this singer's soul is free from gravity. Gravity. If gravity went away, life would be easy. But the good times today, they wouldn't be real. The seats will be empty and the spotlight gone. But I'll see your faces, remember every song. My heart's alive for another day, and I hope that you too can find a way to fly up to freedom. No gravity. You're the only reason this singer's soul is free from gravity. Gravity. From gravity.
You got another one? Just those?
You want one more?
Sure. If you want to.
Let me think of one. Okay. Trying to think of one that's going to fit with those two. Hang on. I got plenty. Got more where those came from. Okay. Okay. This won't fit, but it'll be fun anyway. Are we still live?
Technically.
Technically, is what's the answer. Okay, so I won't say any bad words. Okay, and I deleted this song. Hang on, we'll get there. Run to you. Yeah. Yeah, I have no memory for song lyrics. The 70s were too good to me. Hang on. It's live. By the way, there is a shortage in the U.S. because of the trade wars with China. There's a shortage of harmonica notes. So the solo in this next song is going to be missing some notes as a result. And we apologize in advance for that. Okay. She says love for me never die. But that would change if she ever found out about you and I. Oh, but her love is cold. She didn't know, 'cause
when it gets too much. I need to feel your touch. I'm gonna run to you. I'm gonna run to you. When the feeling's right, I'm gonna stay all night. I'm gonna run to you. She's got a heart of gold. She never let me down. But you're the one that always turns me on. You keep me coming round. I know that love is true, but it's so damn easy making love to you, yeah. Got my mind made up and I need to feel your touch. I'm gonna run to you. I'm gonna run to you. When the feeling's right, I'm gonna run all night. I'm gonna run to you, yeah.
Actually, the shortage is in guitar notes.
I'm gonna run to you. I'm gonna run to you. When the feeling's right, I'm gonna run all night. I'm gonna run to you. I'm gonna run to you. Gonna run to you. When the feeling's right, I'm gonna stay all night. I'm gonna run to you.
All right, we be done?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.